Hello everyone. Okay, so I'd just like to speak a little bit in this video about several issues. The sort of wider issue involved here is workplace bullying, but what I want to focus specifically on is a guy called Gordon Ramsay. For those who don't know, he's a Scottish chef, celebrity chef. I think he's had several shows on TV. In which he apparently trains young chefs to build their own business and so on. I don't know exactly what the agenda is, but I'd just like to speak a bit about what I think of this guy, because in the UK he's quite well known. He's, I'd say, a household name, and he seems to enjoy quite a lot of support, and I think that's undeserved support. Now, I'm not talking about the quality of the food in his restaurants. I'm sure it's good stuff. And I'm not talking about his abilities for cuisine, for producing good food. I don't know, I've never tried any of his food, but I understand he's won awards and I don't doubt his food's fine. No, I'm talking about the guy's character, and the sort of message that he's sending out. Well, first of all, most recently he's come out with a claim that unemployed people have it too easy. Well, I have a few things to say about that. Certainly too many things for the space of this video, but that's a very ignorant statement, and I would like Ramsay to tell the parents of those young unemployed people who have chosen to take their lives under the pressure that they face, tell them it's too easy. The people who say unemployment is too easy have never damn well experienced it. And this arrogant prick, Gordon Ramsay, doesn't know what he's talking about. I really don't like the man. I think, on his shows he always seems to be yelling down at someone. He always seems to be throwing out profanity, sort of, and the reason I wanted to make this video was because of some of the excuses people have been making for him. In my opinion, the guy is nothing but an aggressive bully. He's a coward and a thug who, because he's in a position of some authority, thinks he has a right to do whatever he wants. And I think some chefs do have this dictatorial mindset. They seem to think they're the only people in the world under pressure. And yeah, I think the guy is just a despicable bully, because he knows full well that those trainee chefs can't answer back, they can't defend themselves, and he dishes out insults if they get something wrong. Instead of just saying, this is wrong, get it right, he'll throw in personal insults, and I just think it's disgusting. And I sincerely hope someone stands up to him one day, and frankly, I wouldn't care less if one of those trainee chefs had enough, turned round and laid him out, laid Gordon Ramsay out. I think this man is a coward and a bully, and someone needs to stand up to him. Just who the hell does he think he is? I mean, but I also want to address some of the excuses that are being made for him. People say, well, he has to be hardline, he has to be strict and so on, in order to maintain control in a busy environment and to run a business. Well, firstly, I'm not saying he should wrap the trainee chefs in cotton wool. I'm not saying he should, a position of leadership, a position whereby you have some authority, you have to obviously have some level of discipline. If people are doing the wrong thing, you have to correct them. But there's a fine line between instilling discipline and instilling sort of work ethic, that sort of thing, as opposed to just being an outright bully, which is what this guy is. And that excuse doesn't really weigh up, because there's many successful people who run businesses employing many people who aren't smug bullies. I mean, take Richard Branson, for example. He's a very successful man. He's got a business empire, but he strives on being someone who's easy to work with, or at least relatively easy to work with. He's not a pushover, but he's a decent bloke. He's a decent man. He's not an aggressive arsehole that just... it just sickens me that someone like Gordon Ramsay can get as much airtime as he gets, because I don't think he deserves it. I don't care how good his food is. As far as I'm concerned, that sort of process of bullying staff into And this isn't sort of like telling people off for doing the wrong thing. This is very personal, very cutting sort of remarks, and he knows that they can't stand up for themselves. And I really, really hope someone stands up to this prick, because I think it sends out a message that workplace bullying is okay. I mean, he's going to disagree with that. I don't care what he thinks. I'm talking about the broadcasters, people who allow this, who screen his shows. They're sending the message that this is okay. This is a healthy way to instill a workforce to motivate people. And patronising, talking down to, and bullying people is not a way to motivate them. It just isn't. That makes me very angry. You know, there's people with much greater responsibility than Gordon Ramsay who have a much better temperament and who treat people with respect, who treat people in a much better way than this guy does. And like I say, you know, I understand, I appreciate a kitchen is a very busy environment, and you do need some discipline, and you do need people to try and get things right. But yelling at the face makes an unpleasant environment for everyone, not just the person who's being yelled at. But generally, when you have some, I mean, clearly this guy has health problems in terms of his mental health. Clearly, he has an anger problem. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he turns out and strikes someone. This is a guy who's like a boiling pot. He's you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually assaults someone at some point, one of his so-called trainee chefs. I mean, it just disgusts me that people can celebrate this like it's something, this sort of aggressive behaviour is something we should celebrate and admire. There's nothing to admire about Gordon Ramsay. He just happens to be someone who knows how to cook, who's very arrogant, and who's been lucky enough to get as far as he has. But other than that, I think he's as a person, I think he's a piece of shit. And, you know, I understand, I've heard somewhere that he's come from a broken family or something. I don't know about that. I don't know much about his background. But that's no excuse. You know, and people say he's from Glasgow. Glasgow's a tough city, etc. Again, no excuse, because I've met perfectly friendly Glaswegians. The guy's just a prick, basically. And there's absolutely no honour, there's no integrity, there's absolutely nothing to celebrate about being a bully and shouting down to people who can't defend themselves. And I really, really hope someone stands up to this asshole. I just don't think he should have airtime. And for those people who are saying he needs to be like that in order to get motivation and so on, I would say look at the facts. There are other successful people who don't rely on that sort of approach. There are other people who treat their staff with respect and who have a very successful business. So it's just not, that doesn't weigh up. I don't agree with this idea that they seem to be saying that, the only way to be successful is by acting like a prick. That's just, it's a very cynical worldview, and if it is true, then I think that's very, very sad. And I'd rather that success didn't happen then, if that's what people, you know, if it took people being like that to get success. And like I say, I'm not naive. I know a kitchen is a busy environment, and if people are making a lot of mistakes, then obviously they need to be corrected, and, you know, if they're being paid, they can't afford to mess around. But, you know, it would be much more productive just explaining to the person what, you know, if they're training, they're not professional chefs, they're training. People make mistakes. You know, to expect people to be like robots and never make mistakes. People make mistakes. What he should do is say, look, you've got this wrong, please try and get it right again. I'll show you what to do, but get it right next time. This is a busy kitchen and we can't afford to. And then if they keep making mistakes, then fine, dismiss them. But that sort of workplace bullying just sickens me, and is a very big problem, I think, in Britain. And it's taboo, because anyone who talks about it is accused of being too sensitive. This isn't being too sensitive, this is just being compassionate, being a decent human being, and arguing that that is not a productive thing for anyone. I mean, it's not going to help him, because, you know, yelling, so, you know, when people are being yelled at, most people don't respond very well. it's different in a sort of environment like, you know, in a life and death situation, soldiers on a battlefield, that in that situation that's necessary because that is literally life and death. But all Gordon Ramsay cares about is his own ego and the Michelin stars for his restaurants. That's all this prick cares about. He doesn't give a shit about the people he's working with. He doesn't care. He's only interested in his own ego. And yeah, I just think it's despicable that a man like this is allowed airtime. And there's other examples of people like this in the UK, and I think there's just... I'm sorry, I'm talking quite fast because I am angry, but you know, for him to say the unemployed have it too easy, I would seriously love his business to fail. I'd love him to find himself signing on, then we'll see how damn right self-righteous he is. And I would say all of this to his face, because I think the man is a coward. He relies on bullying people who are not in a position to defend themselves, because if they were to defend themselves, then they know they would lose their job immediately. I mean, I would say to them, what, you know, why would you work with a man like who treats you like this in the first place? But that's that. I think it's a general message is just bad. It's just like Jeremy Kyle. He's someone who's in a position of power and uses that power to bully others, and then claim that it's has some sort of benefit for society. I don't care how good his food is. I would rather eat in a mediocre restaurant with friendly staff, decent food, decent prices, rather than eating in an overpriced restaurant with an arrogant thug who I know has been bullying the staff to make that food or whatever. Yeah, so I'm quite pissed off about this, and I just think someone needs to stand up to this guy. And what he is doing, there's nothing honourable about it at all. His approach, bullying is bullying. It doesn't teach people, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't instill discipline. You can instill discipline without taking the sort of approach he does. And for anyone who doesn't know, just type in Gordon Ramsay Hell's Kitchen, I think it's called, and you'll get an idea what I'm talking about. I was disturbed to see so many people defending him and saying, oh, he needs to be like that. I would say to those people, well, would you have such a warm feeling about him if you were on that receiving end because you made one mistake? You know, what a prick. Gordon Ramsay, I know you're not watching this, but fuck you. I think you're a despicable human being, and I hope you're brought down. Okay, rant over.